excess material, and it worked 95%. And that wall they can get over very easily. These walls they can't. But you know, for the people that say no wall, if you didn't have walls over here, you wouldn't even have a country. You wouldn't even have a country. And by the way, the state of California is begging us to build walls in certain areas. They don't tell you that. And we said, no, we won't do it until we build the whole wall. But there are certain areas, as you know, where they're really wanting us to build a wall. And because the people are complaining, people are pouring in. So, you know, they don't talk about that. Well, I do have a preference. The problem is you have to have see-through. You have to know what's on the other side of the wall. And I mean, a preference is something like that. The problem is you don't know what's on the other side of the wall. And if you don't know what's on, I mean, you could be 2 feet away from a criminal cartel and you don't even know they're there. Now, we have equipment to take care of that, X-ray equipment, etc. But if you're on that side of the wall, that's the hardest wall to scale. It's got a lot of assets. The problem is, tell them, what do you think about the importance of see-through?
When I have a see-through wall, sir, I know what's approaching the border before it approaches. We have great partners in Mexico with the law enforcement on that side. I can call them for assistance. I don't get the opportunity to get ahead of a threat if I can't see it approaching.
And what's the danger of not having the see-through?
When the steel metal fence behind us, we learned from that, and back in the 90s, we went in and actually cut in ports where we could see on the south side. We found that smugglers were using the fence to hide behind. And they were either rocking our agents or they would acquire large groups of people or narcotics, and then they would just rush across the border quickly.
Now, if you just have a pure fence, now that's a fence, a very sturdy fence. But coming up, I noticed, the first thing I noticed, look how many holes are in that fence. Now, they fix the holes, but it doesn't look very good. They just patch it with more fence. But you take a look at the fence, and it's a very powerful fence, not doing the trick, because they cut holes in it, and then they're patching holes all the time. I'm just looking, you have hundreds of holes cut in and patched. So the fence is not strong enough. It's not the right idea. But for those people, if you don't have a wall system, we're not gonna have a country. There's a lot of problems in Mexico. They have a lot of problems over there. And they have the cartels, and the cartels, we're fighting the cartels, and we're fighting them hard. Nobody ever fought them like we fought them. I mean, we fight them hard. But the fact is, if you don't have a wall system, it would be bedlam, I imagine.
It's very hard to control with just personnel, sir. It's a combination of all the above.
So we're looking at the walls where you have really some see-through capability. If you don't have some see-through, it's a problem. So we'll take a look up here.
All right, let's roll with this. We can stay on the pictures, maybe, maybe not. My next guest served as Acting Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, under President Obama. He was also the former Acting General Counsel for the Department of Homeland Security. He is John Sedgwick. Thank you so much, John, for being with me. We were just trying to listen in as best as we could to, you know, what the president was discussing, holes in fences, want a see-through wall. I mean, I hear your laughter. Tell me why you're laughing.
Oh, well, listen, I saw a number of faces I recognized there standing with the president. I will tell you this. In all my time at DHS, working with the Border Patrol extensively, I never heard that we needed a wall. You know, fixed technology, mobile technology can allow us to detect intrusions, absolutely, but a wall, not at all. Now, there are parts, especially where he's standing, where there's triple layer fencing. Now, there are certain areas where that's necessary, but the reality is a lot of that was already built. And again, including some of the people standing there with him right now, I've never heard him say they needed a wall.
So, well, they're looking at 8. You know, John, they're looking at 8 different prototypes there. I hear you saying the wall isn't necessary. You heard the president say we wouldn't even have a country without a border wall. People can take issue with that. What's the best option?
Well, look, I think you heard the Border Patrol chief there say it himself. It's a mixture of all three. Now, where they're standing, there is a lot of what we call fixed infrastructure. There's a triple layer fencing. And in places like Tijuana, San Diego, where in the early 90s you saw hordes of people running across the border, you absolutely need fixed infrastructure there. But all those areas where you need that, where strategically it makes sense, have already been fenced in a long time ago. So what you need now is mobile technology that allows you to detect the intrusions and then can be moved as a threat moves. It's very hard to explain. It's not a static threat. It's not like there's certain spots there in San Diego. For instance, San Diego in the 90s was incredibly crazy and wild and hundreds of thousands of arrests there. Today it's very quiet. The threat's shifted over to Rio Grande Valley. As we surge officers there, the threat's going to shift again. So you want to have technology you can move along the border to be able to meet the threat.
I know this is a campaign promise from the president. I want to know about, pennies, nickels, and dimes. I mean, what's the price tag of this kind of thing, and how long would it even take to build this?
Oh, it'll take years. It's going to take years. There's going to be extensive litigation, and the price tag is going to be billions of dollars. And I think that's the thing that's most disappointing to me, is that I know what the Border Patrol wants and needs just from having spent so much time with them. The cost of what they want, the technology that they need, comes at a fraction of the cost of this wall, and can be deployed a lot more quickly than can this border wall. I mean, you're going to face extensive litigation. You have to buy property. You're going to have to seize property from individuals. It is a long and cumbersome and difficult process to build a wall, and that's billions of dollars that could be dedicated to other aspects of border security.
Thank you so much, John, for weighing in. Let's go back to Jim Acosta, our chief White House correspondent, who, of course, covers the president each and every day. And I can see the thought bubbles of Americans watching. It's everything from one end of the spectrum, which is this seriously going to happen, to, hell yeah, build a wall. And I'm just wondering, I mean, do we even know who would pay for it? How is this going to work?
I think those are very important questions, Brooke. We were just down at the wall earlier this morning and talked to a woman from California whose mother is also from Southern California, but Mexican American, and they were both just expressing to me how completely hurt they were by the fact that the president is building this wall. As this one woman was saying, we should be building bridges, not walls. And in her mind, where was the love? That was essentially the message that she had for the president. And so there are dollars and cents issues here, Brooke, but there are also issues of a message that's being sent to the Latino community across this country, and the message that's being received is not one of love, it's one of hate, and that the president just simply wants to wall off part of the country from another part of the world that he doesn't want coming into the United States. Now, putting all of that aside, that conversation we had with this woman and her mother aside, the president you just heard a few moments ago talking about constructing the wall down there, there were officials on Air Force One talking to reporters about this project. One of those officials said to reporters, how can we afford not to build the wall when you consider all of the crime, all of the drugs that's coming into this country? Of course, they're continuing this portrayal that just about every immigrant coming into the United States south of the border is bringing crime and drugs, almost exactly what the president was saying when he first launched his campaign for president in June of 2015. They have not gotten off that talking point. But Brooke, the reason why that official is making that comment, saying how can we afford not to build the wall is going to pay for itself, is the very clear fact that they're not going to make Mexico pay for this wall. And as you know, Brooke, we heard that time and again throughout the campaign. Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Well, now the administration has switched to a new talking point, which is how can the American people not pay for the construction of the wall, considering all the problems that are coming into this country. And so you have the White House, you have the president, you have top officials almost on a weekly or a monthly basis coming up with new talking points to try to sell this project to the American people. And it's no surprise, just like the gentleman you heard from just a few moments ago, why there is sort of a raised eyebrow and some skepticism about this project, because while the president wants this wall and a lot of people in his base want this wall, it's something that a lot of people can't figure out. And coming back to this point that I was mentioning earlier about this woman and her mother down at the border earlier this morning, there's just a feeling just among a huge and growing part of the United States, huge and growing community in the United States, that it just sends the wrong message of exclusion to people at a time when this country is becoming more multicultural, not less. Brooke?
Jim, thank you for all of that. And of course, Jim is standing by. We're going to hear from the president a little later today, speaking to Marines there in San Diego. Scott Jennings, just close this out. I mean, the photo op there with the president, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, campaign promise fulfilled. This has got to be, this is like his dream photo op.
It is a dream for him to get this process rolling. But what we now have to do, if you're the president and you're the White House, is you've got to convince Congress to do this with you. And you've got to get the money. And it's an expensive thing to do. And right now, Congress has been unwilling to do that. Obviously, there was some hope.
Actually, sorry, Scott. Let's listen to the president for a second.
But at least it stops 95%. When we put up the real wall, we're going to stop 99%, maybe more than that. But this is what it is now with a not very good wall. But here it is before, and the people just pouring across.
This is one of the sections where we have double fencing. You have a board, actually triple
Right.
fencing. You have a wall here, you have bollards.
Right.
And again, it's outdated materials, but it proved the concept. But sir, the economic driver of this outlet mall that was built after we reestablished law and order in San Diego sector, and right behind that's over 500 brand new homes where people have felt so safe near the border, they've moved back in. But that's only because the U.S. Border Patrol reestablished law and order.
So they reestablished law and order in San Diego when they put up a wall. And it's not a superior wall, it's an inferior wall, but it's a wall. And you actually use the term reestablished law and order.
Yes, sir.
You hear it, folks. I mean, say what you want. This is life. These are the facts of life. That's incredible. That's incredible. And a part of San Diego needs a wall. They want a wall very desperately. They're willing to do anything to get it. I said, nope, approve the whole wall, California. Approve the whole wall. We're not going to do your little pieces that you want. Approve the whole wall. You know the section I'm talking about. Okay, folks. Thank you. You get it?
Been helpful for you?
Excuse me?
Has coming here to
Oh, yeah,
CB's been
fantastic. I mean, we're looking very much at the wall with some see-through capability on the other side and then solid concrete on top or steel and concrete on top. The round piece that you see up here or you see more clearly back there, the larger it is, the better it is because it's very hard to get over the top. It's really deterrent from getting over the top. Who would think? Who would think? But getting over the top is easy. These are like professional mountain climbers. They're incredible climbers. They can't climb some of these walls. Some of them they can. Those are the walls we're not using. So we've determined that you guys have done a fantastic job. We've determined what to do. This way when we build, we're not like saying, oh gee, I wish we did it a different way. But if you didn't have it, you would have a tremendous problem. And even the walls they have now, they're not holding out. They're not holding up. And they're small, but they're really great compared to what they had before.
Correct.
Stopped about 95%. Right?
Correct. I can just point out, we're showing pictures of the United States, of course, too. But there's been an equal benefit to Tijuana, to Mexico, that you don't have all that activity hanging out on the south side of the fence either. It's improved the border on both sides, not just our side.
Okay, folks?
So what do you say to criticism from Governor Brown that some of this money might be better spent elsewhere?
Well, I think Governor Brown's done a very poor job running California. They have the highest taxes in the United States. The place is totally out of control. You have sanctuary cities where you have criminals living in the sanctuary cities. And then the mayor of Oakland goes out and notifies when ICE is going in to pick them up. And many of them were criminals with criminal records and very dangerous people, you would say dangerous people. And no, I think the governor's doing a terrible job running the state of California. And you know, hey, I have property in California, I will say. I don't think too much about my property anymore, but I have great property in California. The taxes are way, way out of whack. And people are going to start to move pretty soon. And if you don't have safety, meaning if you don't have this kind of wall, the drugs are pouring through in California. Can't do it. So the governor of California, nice guy, I think he's a nice guy, I knew him a long time ago, has not done the job. And the taxes are double and triple what they should be. And everybody that lives in California, they know it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Everybody, thank you. Follow Katie. To your left, everyone. To your left.
John Sedgwick, I got to bring you back in. ICE, DHS. When you hear the president say that the Mexicans are professional mountain climbers, what?
You know, I think what was more disturbing to me is this notion that somehow the wall is going to stop drugs from coming into this country. I've been not that far away from where the president is standing in a drug tunnel that we seized and stopped. That went about 2 miles long, was fully ventilated, even had a rail system inside. Drugs are not coming in, cocaine and heroin are not being seized between the ports of entry, meaning people crossing the border at land are very rarely are they bringing in cocaine and heroin. Where we see it is coming through the legal ports of entry, so through cars, through the air, even through the ocean, up in the beaches, you know, all the way north, all the way to Los Angeles. We're seeing boats coming forth, bringing in drugs and people, smuggling them into the United States. So I think my concern would be to spend billions of dollars building a wall through deserted stretches of desert where there's very little traffic. And when that money could be better spent elsewhere.
Okay. John, thank you so much, and Scott and Jim and everyone weighing in on this tour of the border. Coming up next, Rex Tillerson, not the only person the president fired today. The president's longtime personal aide escorted out of the White House this week. As we're learning, he is actually under investigation for serious financial crimes. We will take you to the White House coming up.